Chancellor of the University of Ilorin, representative of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Vice Chancellor of the University of Ilorin, Governor of Kwara State, staff of Ilorin University, graduates, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the kind introduction and the very warm Nigerian hospitality I have enjoyed since I stepped here on the grounds of University of Ilorin. It is such an honor for me to be here with all of you today on this special occasion which marks the 40th anniversary celebration of the great University of Ilorin. 40 years, that is quite a long span of time. For me, the first word that comes to mind when I think of the University of Ilorin and when I think of the Africa in which it was born is the word freedom. In 1975, Africa was still far away from achieving the full freedom of which our forefathers had dreamed. The entire African continent was still heavily engaged in one form of struggle or the other. On the one hand, there was repression, and on the other hand, there was resistance. 1975, the year this university was born, was the year that Mozambique and Cape Verde won their independence from Portuguese colonization. That same year, Angola also won its independence, but it immediately fell into a civil war that was to last decades. For the other Southern African countries like Namibia and Zimbabwe and South Africa, whose liberation had yet to come, we fought, we boycotted, we demonstrated, we marched, and we sang for them. We in North, West, East, and Central Africa, who could not speak any words of Xhosa, nevertheless knew every word of the freedom song, Nkosi Sikelele Africa. And when we sang those words, we felt the weight of the oppression of our brothers and sisters in Namibia, South Africa, and Zimbabwe in our own spirits. This is not to say that we were not experiencing our own brand of oppression and singing our own songs of resistance and freedom. In 1975, Fela Aníkúlà Kuti was at his most prolific. He released several albums with songs like Everything Scatter, Water No Get Enemy, an expensive, I won't say the word. My own favorite song of Fela, of course, is Gentleman, which cuts right to the issue of identity and self-love, and had been written 2 years earlier before this university was born. It is true that by 1975, Ghana, Nigeria, and numerous other sub-Saharan nations had already won their independence from colonial rule. But that liberation did not somehow translate into freedom. In fact, far from being free, it seemed that military regimes or dictators were now ruling most of these newly liberated nations. In 1975, there was a coup in Nigeria, which moved the country from the rule of one military government to another. In 1975, the National Redemption Council, the military government that had been ruling my own country, Ghana, decided to rechristen itself as the Supreme Military Council. And with the new name for the government came a new title for our military head of state, who promoted himself from colonel to general. But in the mid-1970s, that seemed to be the trend. The sudden and erratic changing of names, it seemed to be the final stamp of authenticity on dictatorship and the first clear sign of descent into the sort of lunacy that comes with political megalomania. In 1975, Joseph Désiré Mobutu, the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, had changed the country's name to Zaire. He had also changed his own name to Mobutu Sese Seko Nkonkongbendu Wazabanga, which translates into, and I quote, the all-powerful warrior who, because of his endurance and inflexible will to win, will go from conquest to conquest, leaving fire in his wake. Quotations closed. Mobutu also fixed his image on the country's postage stamp and on its currency. Though Uganda's President Idi Amin never changed the name of his country after his coup in the early 70s, he also did promote himself from Major General to Field Marshal. He then assumed the title, and I quote, His Excellency, President for Life, Field Marshal Alhaji Dr. Idi Amin Dada. By 1975, when your university was born, he had also started bestowing all kinds of unearned titles and decorations upon himself, such as CBE, Conqueror of the British Empire, VC, Victoria Cross, DSO, Distinguished Service Order, and MC, Military Cross. By the end of his tenure, his complete self-giving title had become His Excellency President for Life, Field Marshal Alhaji Dr. Idi Amin Dada, VC, DSO, MC, Lord of all the beasts of the earth and fishes of the sea, and conqueror of the British Empire in Africa in general and Uganda in particular. Quotations closed. In this same period of the birth of your university, Equatorial Guinea's President Francisco Macias Nguema, in the 1970s, before his government was overthrown, President Nguema had also started assigning himself titles such as the Unique Miracle of the World and the Grand Master of Education, Science and Culture. He also officially changed the motto of the nation, the national motto, to, and I quote, there is no other God than Macias Nguema, quotations closed. President Nguema ran a regime that was so brutal. Equatorial Guinea earned the international title, and I quote, the Dachau of Africa. This was named after the Dachau concentration camp in Nazi Germany. In 1975, during the Christmas season, President Nguema gathered 150 of his political opponents in a football stadium in Malabo and had each and every one of them executed. Furthermore, he insisted that during this mass execution, the amplifiers in the stadium played the popular Mary Hopkins version of the song, Those Were the Days. The choice of that song as the soundtrack to a mass execution was especially wicked. Nevertheless, the song speaks for itself, perfectly to the mindset of that particular era. And so many of the people, colonial and African, who were in power, just listened to the lyrics. And the lyrics say, those were the days, my friend, we thought they'd never end. We'd sing and dance forever, and a day would live the life we choose. Would fight and would never lose, for we were young and sure to have our way. Yes, those were the days into which your proud university was born. So in surveying how far Ilorin, Nigeria, and Africa have traveled in those 40 years, we must begin the journey there with a recognition of the miracle of an institution such as this being conceived and actualized in a time such as that. We often speak of standing on one's own 2 feet. I've always found that to be such an odd expression, not to mention a completely unrealistic ambition. Nobody ever stands on his own 2 feet. We all stand on the achievements and accomplishments of somebody else, of those who came and who saw and who did long before we ever were. I know without a doubt that I stand on the shoulders of my father, who was a politician, a minister in Ghana's first government under the leadership of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. The political life is not one to which I had ever aspired. I refer to myself quite seriously as an accidental politician. And though it was the accident of destiny, a series of seemingly random and unrelated choices and events that brought me here to this place as president, it was the determination of my father to provide me with the best education possible that prepared for me whatever fates life brought to me. Chancellor, staff and students of University of Ilorin. Earlier I mentioned that the word freedom is the first one that comes to mind when I think of the birth of the University of Ilorin during those fateful years in African history. That is because in Africa, education is the key to the sort of freedom that our founding fathers, and for many of us, our familial fathers, envisioned. Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, the first president of Nigeria, said, "Originality," and I quote, "originality is the essence of true scholarship. Creativity is the soul of the true scholar." Quotations closed. Africa is known as being the most resource-rich continent in the world. But when people say this, they're usually referring to our gold and our silver, our diamonds, our bauxite, our oil, and the numerous other resources that are contained or found in the earth. What is often overlooked or not spoken of with the same weight and urgency is our people. And the people of Africa are by and large our most valuable resource. Much has been written and spoken about the rest of the world's use and misuse of Africa's resource, and figures are even placed on these resources. In 1975, when the University of Ilorin was founded, Africa was at the height of what is referred to as the brain drain. The large number of people who were losing to overseas immigration and the limited number of institutions that were available to educate those who remained placed a significant burden on the continent's ability to develop at a reasonable pace. And quite predictably and understandably, Africa fell far behind. So the founding of a university such as Ilorin was no small feat. For us to be able to educate our own people here on our own soil, for them to stay and to combine their God-given talents with the knowledge and training that they have gained in order to better their communities, our communities, that was no small feat. When institutions such as this one, year after year, graduate a large number of diversely skilled individuals, though I have to say, I've heard that Ilorin, both the university and the town, has quite a leaning towards lawyers and the legal profession. But even so, over the course of time, it does make a huge difference. It changes the face of a nation. It changes its rate of development. It places the nation, and by extension the continent, firmly on the path of true progress. In the 40 years that the University of Ilorin has been in existence, look at what the process of education has done to this country. Nigeria has produced world-class professionals, some of them the best in their fields of endeavor. Look at the doctors, the businessmen, the IT people, the bankers, the writers, the actors, the filmmakers, the educators, and well, all right, also the lawyers that this nation has gifted the world with. The University of Ilorin alone has produced the governor of Kwara State, my friend, and brother who's sitting next to me. Has produced Babs Omotowa, the MD and CEO of Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas Limited. Has produced Sarah Alade, the former acting governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Has produced Mrs. Folusho Olaniyam, the MD and CEO of UTC Nigeria Limited. And has produced the actor Femi Adebayo. And that is just to mention a few names. If I were to stand here and list all of the people who have come through these halls and made an impact on society, we would be here the whole day. What I've noticed is that it is our tendency in Africa to speak of what we do, not what we do not have, how we are lacking in this or that, why we have not gotten where other more developed nations have gotten, and who might possibly be to blame for this. And while I do not believe that there is anything wrong with critique or self-analysis, so long as it is constructive, I do believe that sometimes in the process of making these critiques and performing that self-analysis, we forget how far we have traveled to get where we are. When I spoke of what was happening in the 1970s, when I made mention of the pomposity of the leaders we had back then, like Mobutu and Idi Amin and Nguema, it sounded humorous. How amazing it is that what was once a source of pain, suffering, terror, and fear in those days can now be a source of humor and laughter today. Because distance allows us to see the ridiculousness of it all. And also because our growth and development affords us the safety of knowing that those bad old days are behind us. Indeed, they are far behind us. We will get where we want to go, just as our forefathers and foremothers, the ones on whose shoulders we stand, the Kwame Nkrumahs, the Azikiwes, the Lumumbas, the Mandelas, they got where they wanted to go and they achieved what they had to achieve. And so too will we, this new generation. In 40 years from today, when the University of Ilorin celebrates its 80th anniversary, when the twinkle in all of our eyes has turned into a twitch, when our children and grandchildren are seated where we are today, what will they say about this era, about these days in which we are currently living? Will they applaud our efforts, or will they laugh at us? Worse still, will they chastise us for our apathy? In 2013, on the 50th anniversary of the African Union, all the heads of its member states came together in an attempt to answer those very questions. What we came up with was an agenda, a roadmap to guide our individual nations and the continent as a whole on the next phase of our journey towards an independence that is based on self-sufficiency, economic stability, eradication of poverty, gender equality, peace and social justice, ethnic, racial, and religious tolerance and harmony. These are all huge goals, and perhaps in their more abstract and general form, they might even be bigger than they actually are. But I sincerely believe that they are all ultimately achievable. We have broken them down into 8 basic priority areas: African identity and renaissance, the struggle against colonialism, and the right to self-determination of people still under colonial rule, the integration agenda, the agenda for social and economic development, the agenda for peace and security, democratic self-governance, determining Africa's destiny and Africa's place in the world. What is true freedom? That's almost an impossible question to answer. The definition of true freedom is ever-shifting, one that changes with the times, with advances in technology, with the adjustments of societal and cultural norms. True freedom is not one thing, but it's many desperate things at the same time. The absence of freedom is what drives us to leave our lands, what compels dozens of our individuals to brave the harshest and most dangerous conditions in crossing the Sahara and the Mediterranean Sea to enter Europe, or to queue for countless hours each day in front of non-African embassies, praying to be granted a visa so that we can depart our homelands. The absence of freedom is the absence of hope for anything better, the absence of opportunities in order to change the circumstances of one's life, is the absence of faith in our leadership, in the way our nations are governed, and in the institutions that are meant to raise us up. True freedom is something that so many of our people still do not have, and that must change. We must make it change. One day, like today, in celebrating the tremendous progress that has been made in the life of a single institution such as this, we see and we feel the power of possibility that exists in just a single dream. The African Union's Agenda 2063 is nothing more or less than a continuation of such a dream. It is a way and a means for each of our 54 countries to tap into the power of those dreams, to encourage our citizens of this continent that we all love so dearly to come together and take charge of our own destinies and to keep making this dream come true. We cannot afford to forget that we hold the power to do that in our hands. Today we are marking a milestone that every day should be a celebration of our achievements. Every day should serve as a call to action to create change in whatever small way we can. It is true that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. We must carry that same sense of hope and pride that we feel today as we commemorate the successful completion of such a long journey into tomorrow and the next tomorrow and the next tomorrow. I encourage each and every one of you to find out more about African Union's Agenda 2063. I challenge each and every one of you to start finding ways to incorporate it into your daily lives, whatever activities, however minor they may seem, that will move all of us closer to meeting those goals. You'll be surprised at how huge a difference it will make in both the short and the long run to your country. We have only ever had ourselves to rely on for change, but as we can so clearly see today, that is and has always been more than enough. This very university is positive proof of that. I congratulate the University of Ilorin for 40 amazing years of service, and I pray that at least the next 40 years will be even more glorious. May God continue to bless the University of Ilorin. May God continue to bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. May God bless the Republic of Ghana and our beloved Mother Africa. I thank you for your time.